This is the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. And on today's show, I've got Ayaz Bhuta. Ayaz is a member of the British wheelchair rugby team, aka Murderball, and is a recent member of Paralympics GB's team in Rio 2016. So, welcome to the show, Ayaz.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. Looking forward to speaking to you today.
So, before we delve into today's show, Ayaz, can we go back to where the journey began?
Um, well, the journey began from birth, really. I was born with a disability called Robert syndrome, which is quite coincidental with your name, actually. Um, and it's a disability that limits the growth of your limbs. So I stand at 3'7", 3'8", depending on what day it is. And I weigh about 7.5 stone. And it's also affected my upper body limbs. I've got a right arm which doesn't extend, uh, and a few finger deformities. Um, yeah, all throughout my life, really, it was in and out of hospital. I went to school. I've gone through the full education system. I've got a degree. Uh, but like my younger days at school were quite a challenging time because I spent the first year of my life in an incubator in hospital, and I was pretty small, like being looked after, being sort of bubble wrapped. That's the sort of thing pe- people do to disabilities, which is a natural reaction, really, because you want to protect your child, or student at school. So I went to school just down the road from here, where I live in Bolton, and yeah, I was the only person in the wheelchair in my school, and I had a teacher, a special needs education teacher, who just used to look after me, and without that support from her, I still keep in touch with her right now. Um, she was great for me in school, but now I look back on it, like I always wanted to do sport at a young age. So like, this probably sounds a bit childish, but like at break time at school in primary school, I wanted to play. I could walk a little bit more than I can right now. Back when I was younger, and I could run around a lot more. And I just wanted to play football with my friends, on the playground, 15 minutes, and I was never allowed to up to a certain point. And then one time, I just thought, forget this, I'm joining in. And then the teachers were shocked. I probably got in trouble, um, and that sort of broke that barrier of being bull wrapped and etc. And ever since then, the school let me participate in sports, and throughout my whole school career life, I was quite into sports. And then I'd say in secondary school, I took up fencing, um, you know, um, and that was just a recreational thing, and that was quite good because I got to skip a few lessons to during the day. So it's like a win-win. That I went to do sport, and I think I missed RE. I used to hate RE. So uh, um, and yeah, just did fencing, and then we went to this like Rotary thing. Have you heard of these Rotary clubs?
Yeah.
There's like the Northwest event going on. And I went down, tried out every different sport, wheelchair racing, basketball, shooting, you name it, weightlifting. I tried it all. Um, Throughout that day, at the end of it, there was like this award for uh, like achiever of the day, and I got, because I tried everything. They give me the award, which is quite a rewarding award to get. Um, from there, I got scouted for wheelchair basketball, um, by one of the coaches. I live in Bolton, but it was in Bury, which is about 4 or 5 miles away. Um, so he told me to come down. I went down, and I played basketball for 2 years, and I'm like I mentioned, I'm 3'7", 3'8", and 7.5 stone, and um, it's a non-contact sport, and I'm smashing into people that are like twice the size and the height of me, and I got sent off every game, and well, almost every game, and coaches were happy and everything, and then one day I think we had an evening game, and a scout from wheelchair rugby came down to watch, and to play wheelchair rugby you have to have like a lower body and upper body disability. So like I mentioned before, I've got shortened legs and got a deformity in my right arm, which qualified me to play. Um, so I went down to like a GB training camp where we got classified. In disability sport, you have to be classified by a classifier who measures all your muscle strengths and weaknesses and all your functionality to make sure you're eligible to play for the sport. Um, and I got classed as a 3-pointer in wheelchair rugby, which is like one of the highest classifications you can get. Like it's like the second highest you can get on the international stage. So it goes from 0.5, 1.5 to 2.5, all the way up to 3.5. And if you're classed as a 4-pointer, you can't play the sport on an international level. So I got classed as a 3-pointer, and I got directed to the closest team to me, which is in Southport. I still play for them. They're called West Coast Crash. And that was like in 2011. And I still remember my first session. And to play like wheelchair sports, you have to have a chair that's suited for you. And it's my first session, and I'm in a big wide chair that's probably been designed for somebody that's like twice the size and twice the weight of me. Um, and I'm pushing this around, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the physical elements of the game, and the people were nice, so I decided to carry on. Um, and then for about a year or so, I was like, um, I'm in an hour in which sport should I do? And wheelchair rugby or basketball? Um, so I think I chose wheelchair rugby because I think I just preferred it a little bit more. So I carried on playing that, and um, within the first few months of playing, I got taken to a tournament by the GB Elite team in Australia. And safe to say, like being a small guy in a big sport like rugby, you got big, powerful people, and I was quite targeted, and I never really knew the game, and I got smashed out my chair quite a bit, and there were doubts about my if I would have a career internationally, and you know, so after that tournament, my sort of GB career sort of ended, you know, um, and it was like implied that it's dangerous for you, and you know you're gonna get hurt playing internationally because there's plenty of big hitters out there and stuff. But again, like in school, I got told it would be safe to play sports with other able-bodied children, and I'm facing it again later in my life, um, where it will be safe to play with the disabled, but they're bigger than you. Um, so I mean, I carried on. My club coach, always, who is the current GB coach now, he's always had the belief in me to progress and be a big player. I remember my first session. Like we had like a little huddle, and I'm not sure if he was just saying it just to get me to come back, um, or if he. I think I like to think he meant it. So and he said like "Look, this guy's gonna be a big. He's gonna be a big player for the club and hopefully Great Britain in years to come. So after that disappointment in the Four Nations in 2010, 2011, I carried on playing, and I started to learn the game. I started to figure out where I fit in the game, and so I developed like a unique, agile game. Um, like try to avoid hits and being small and nimble and using that to my advantage uh, to get away from the opponents. So I carried on that, and slowly, I started getting better and better, and my skills started getting better, and the knowledge of the game started getting better. And then there was like a GB development team being set up, which was being run by my club coach, and he said, "I'd like to give you a shot." Um, you know, um, in this team, in this squad. So I trained with them for a year, and at the end of it, there was like a selection for a tournament in Prague called Rugby Mania, which is like an end of year tournament, but it's quite a good level standard tournament where a few international teams go to it. So this was after London 2012 Paralympics. We went, and on the back of the Paralympics, the development team, went to this tournament, and it, we were like a really young team, and Germany were quite a well established team, well, they still are actually. And for a bunch of young guys to go and beat them at a tournament was quite a bit of a buzz. And then we lost to Denmark by a margin like 3 points or something like that. Again, for a young team, it was quite promising. So after London 2012, like there was like a lot of changes within the GB elite team. New coach, a lot of players retired and moved on to other things. And this gave opportunity of for like 6, 7 development players to come through. So I got called up. I was one of the 7, or I think it was 7, to get called up, and we got taken to a test event for the World Championships, and we finished 4th, um, which was at one place better than the London 2012 Paralympics team did. But you got to take into consideration, teams had time off and they're working on things at that tournament, so it probably wasn't a true reflection on the world rankings at that stage. So we went up one world ranking to 4th, from 5th to 4th. And then that tournament, I got voted the best player in my position, which was a 2.5. You know how I mentioned about classification before? So I started off as a 3 pointer, and then some point during my club career, I got reclassified and I came down to a 2.5. And then my first GB Elite tournament, I got classed. You have to have 3 international classes, classifications. So I had my first one at that first GB tournament in 2013. And then that year we trained for the European Championships. Yeah, like I mentioned, we were like a new team, a very inexperienced team compared to all the all the teams that were there at the European Championships that year. And we finished with a bronze medal, which was probably a fair reflection of the standard we were at there. So next year, that was in 2013. In 2014, we went to the World Championships, and this is where we started getting better and better as a team and more experience. We we traveled everywhere really, like USA, Canada, everywhere, just to get the experience and get get the inexperienced guys a lot of experience in prep. Um, so whilst I'm playing as an athlete, I'm also working. So I worked at the I don't think I'm allowed to say the name, but like a well-known bank, um, and just a call center job really. Sat behind the desk doing fraud checks all day, um, and I was juggling life as an athlete and an employee, and slowly, as I got my athlete commitments got more and more and more, my training got um, um, more intensified, uh, and the travel got more. It was quite hard for me to juggle both. So in 2015, um, we I decided to leave my job, to focus on like the European Championships to qualify for Rio, and then hopefully um, get to Rio myself. So it was like a 1.5 year plan just to give it everything. And in 2015, we beat Sweden by 1 point in the final, and we'd already qualified to because in the European zone, if you get to the final of the European Championships, you're through to the um, yeah, you got an automatic place at the Paralympics. But GB hadn't won a European Championship for about 8 years, 10 years maybe, and we wanted to be the team that that broke that duck, and we beat Sweden by 1 point in the last, I think it was 6 seconds, where a guy with your name called Jim Roberts just sprinted the full length of the court in like 5 6 seconds and scored the goal. Um, and we wanted to win that because like the winner of the European Championships got to go to the test event for the Paralympics, and that was an extra incentive to win. So um, we beat Sweden by 1, and then went to the test event for the Paralympics. It was like a 4-team tournament. So Australia, who were champions who were like Paralympic champions, Canada, who were the US, the American zonal champions, GB were the European zonal champions, and then Brazil, who were the host nation. So um, we we got a gold medal there, um, but it probably wasn't a true reflection at the time because people teams are working on things and experimenting, and it's a test event, and like they're testing things out, like we were testing things out as well. So although it was nice to get a gold medal, be ahead of the likes of Australia and Canada at the time, we knew that it probably um, wasn't a true reflection, and we'd have to work harder to beat those teams in a year's time. Um, so I trained that year. Sacrificed a lot. I was away at training camps, and then I did a bit of extra training as well because around my area where I live, I'm not the very well. I wasn't the most well situated player within the squad, so my regional training I had to do like in Birmingham, which is like an hour and a half to 2 hours away every day. Not every day, every week. Sorry, twice a week, which was quite a struggle. So my captain, Chris Ryan, said, you're welcome to come and stay and train with me every week or when you can. So I did that. So I go down on a Sunday night, train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, come back, and then it was like into a training camp after that, and then back to his house, did training, and it was quite intense training for everyone really. And we found out about 2 or 3 months before the Paralympics that I got selected, and we had like a big launch, and my reaction was quite subdued. We got taken into a room with the performance director and the two coaches, and like he said, we're sorry, but we're going to have to take you to the Paralympics, and I was like, yeah. So playing with your heartstrings there a little bit, and I just said thank you, and then just stayed silent, and there was like an awkward silence, and I don't know. I think I was just like taking it in, and the coach said, "Do you not want to say anything?" I go, "No, not really," and then I went, "Thank you, bye," and then went. So the process was that you go into a room, and then you go into another room where everyone else was selected. So um, it was fair on everyone to find out, if they weren't selected or not selected anonymously. So we had to go through like a secret room where, and I think it was alphabetical order. So my name's Bhuta, so I was like one of the first to find out, and I was in a room with the captains, and Um, that's when it started to kick in and the excitement. Saw the smile on the face, all the hugs and stuff, and we made it. Um, so yeah, we trained for the next like intensely for the next uh 2 or 3 months after that. It was an exciting time really. You felt like a celebrity. Lots of media requests, and it was my first ever Paralympics, so it was quite new. It was quite an exciting time getting kitted up for your Paralympic kit, and then the delivery of your Paralympic kit like took up my whole room really. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking back on it now. It's all just like it just flew by. Like with it was probably one of the greatest moments of my life really going to Rio and competing. And like the first game against Australia, we lost by 2 points. And then the next day we played Canada. We had like a group of death. Because it it could have been any three team really. Because with wheelchair rugby, there's two groups of four. Top two qualify for the semi-finals to compete for a medal, and we lost by two to Australia, which we feel um, we could have won. A few silly mistakes and uh, here and there could have been avoided. And again against Canada, really, we've given every time we play Canada from 2014 to 2016, it's always been a 1 point victory either way, and and they managed to beat us by 1 point within the last 10 seconds, which ended our medal hopes really. Um, and yeah, that was a real disappointment. I had to do a TV interview on Channel 4 straight away, and I think I was trying to hold back the tears, but I don't think that they were. And one of my family members recorded the interview and sent it me, and I still not watched it to this day. I think it's somewhere hidden on my phone, but I can't bring myself to watch it. And from then on, we knew our tournament was over because we couldn't medal. But our next objective was to be the number one team in Europe, um, which the highest we could finish was fifth, and the coaches said, um, we expect you to finish fifth, um, and we did. We beat Sweden by I don't know. I think it was double figures by 13, something like that. And then we went home, had a few months off, and then yeah, you must have heard about so um, every 4 years, UK sport uh, have a meeting and decide to which sports to fund and how much to fund. And we weren't even expecting to lose our funding. I think deep down I was expecting like a really lower amount because we were quite well funded between for the real cycle. And I don't think I was expecting that much funding, but I was expecting some kind of funding. But to lose your funding completely was like a complete shock. Um, I was on the way to London to one of my teammates' house. Was having like a little get together, um, and the whole way I spent on the phone talking to teammates. Like, what does this mean? The coach is ringing me and goes, "Oh, don't worry, we'll appeal it." And uh, I was quite reliant on the £12,000 funding that I was getting, being a UK sport funded athlete. And the reality of losing that was quite daunting. Like I sacrificed my job to do this sport, and now the money's been taken away from me. All right, it's not a substantial amount, like 12,000, but um, it was enough for me to train and live sort of modestly and just get by. But I was happy with that because, um, like I'm representing my country, so um, yeah, I could manage. So although it was quite tough, but I could manage with it. and um, I think we appealed the decision in February, and it still got rejected. Uh, sports like badminton losing their funding as well. Winning their first medal, which is a um, bit harsh on them as well. So it's harsh on us as well because we missed out by 1 point to compete. But that's the reality of the situation we're in. So 2017 really was quite a tough year. Because it took me a few months to get over like what's going to happen because um, I think there was like a period of like not depression but like um, just being down about going to training and like what's the point? Like it's not going to get anywhere, and what's going to happen. The future of the sport is not it's not secure. Um, and we the, I think there was one camp where our CEO came down and just reassured us that he's working on things and trying to get us funding. And then we launched the fundraising campaign, which has raised 41,000 pounds so far. I think maybe 45 now, which is like an incredible amount to help us. Well, when you've lost 3 million, um, to get that, but 45,000 will be a massive help for us. It guarantees us like training camps and um, getting us to a tournament. And luckily we've got a sponsor on board called LMAX Exchange, who have kindly funded us. I think it's £50,000 a year, which guarantees us a major tournament every year and a few training camps. So the team are sorted, but we're still trying to find money to take us to these extra tournaments to prepare the best we can. But on an individual level, we've had to find sponsorship, and it's quite a struggle finding sponsorship when um, you've not got a medal around your neck, and it's quite you know you're struggling to offer companies things, and there's things you can offer companies like um, you know I do a lot of public speaking outside of like sport. Um, that's one thing I can offer them, and amongst other things like social media exposure, etc. But ultimately, um, you can't really pull a sponsor in really if there's no medal around your neck, really. And there's that's the sort of thing that I've been struggling with. Like I've been like I've approached like hundreds of companies, and you know, uh, just been rejected all the way. And hopefully I'm talking to a couple of potential sponsors at the moment, but hopefully that comes out, and hopefully we can work a partnership out. But I think it's a really good time for somebody to believe in us, really, because between the top five in the world, there's like 1 or 2 points in it. So uh, Australia beat USA by 1 point at the Paralympics, uh, and USA beat Japan by 1 point, 1 or 2 points to get to the final. Japan beat Canada by 2 or 3 points, and Canada beat us by 1 point. So it's like on the day really, and performing. And I don't think there's any sport in the world that's apart from the Premier League really, but um, that's that close. And yeah, I think next year I think we can do big things at the World Championships. Like no European team has ever medaled on the world stage, and I feel we're in the best position to do that. Well, it just depends how much training we can do and how much preparation due to the lack of funding. Um, so this year, like 2017, we we usually have like a few preparation tournaments and a lot more camps than we usually had. The only thing that we had this year was um, a home series against Denmark. Um, like it was like a 5 game series where they came down to us and um, we played a few games. I think we won the series 4-1. That's the only international exposure we had this year going into European Championships, which probably isn't great. Even though we're number one in Europe, you want to make sure that you're best prepared. And luckily, we had like um, a lot of new guys coming in who, like I mentioned about classifications, like 3.5s. We never had our highest pointer was a 3 pointer, and we we had a couple of 3.5s come in, and a few returnees, like that are really experienced, and the level of our training camps just shot up. Like we could play two intense lines against each other, which could probably match any European team, and to we were quite lucky to have that, and I think that's what prepared us in the best possible way to retain our gold medal at the European Championships. Um, yeah, we I think we won all 5 games at the European Championships, and it's probably our best performance as a GB team at any European Championships ever. And it's really consistent, and it shows we had great squad depth as well, because our our most experienced high pointer was um, had a family wedding to go to on the day of the final, so we never had him for the final. And to do that, to win the gold medal and beat Sweden by 8, shows that we have like great great quality and depth in the squad now, and hopefully we can kick on and um, get a medal at next year's World Championships, and then the next year qualify for Rio, and then the year after that get a medal at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. So yeah, sorry, I'm speaking a lot there,
No,
but
that's fine, I asked. But in terms of like your personal circumstances, obviously with losing funding,
yeah.
have you had to go back into full-time work as well now, or not?
Um, I, it was a bit of a debate that I was having. I've got my CV prepared, and like updated, but really I don't want to do that, because I feel this team's like on the verge of something really special. I want to be a part of it as much as I can, like a big part of it. Like if I went back to work, like I was really struggling like with my fitness. I was really tired. Doing a full day's work and training, and you're not getting the full benefits of your training if you're so tired and you're doing it tired. Um, Although my workplace were quite accommodating, like giving me time off and letting me go part time and things like that. But again, it takes its toll on you. Like I get tired now and I'm doing training, um, like so. Imagine what I'm doing when I'm working and training. So, I mean, it is an option there that I will do it if I have to. And there's companies out there that will employ athletes and give time off and things like that. Because I went to an athlete futures event in January, I think. Um, Sorry, last year. And there are lots of companies out there looking to employ sports people and looking to support them. But I think I just want to have the freedom of like training and giving everything to my sport. And the only thing I can do is like um, try and raise my public speaking profile, um, get the try and get some jobs in that, and also hopefully try and find a company or a businessman to sponsor me like a small amount to carry on. I mean, we are getting supported now through Great Britain Wheelchair Rugby. We've done some fundraising, and like we're getting a little bit of a like subsidized costs, like living costs and like training costs and equipment costs. And but that's just to keep you going. It's not really sustainable for a living, and I mean we're grateful to have it, and it's keeping us in the sport for now. But um, I want to have that financial security behind me through sponsorship, and yeah, so that's where I'm at. And if I do have to go back into work, I will go back into work.
And also, I was reading, Ayaz, you've been coined as the John Alomo of wheelchair rugby. How did that nickname come about, and who kind of gave it to you?
Um, I think, to be honest, the reporter sort of gave me that for the headline. Really, I'm not really seen as a powerhouse, and I get mocked by my teammates like, oh, Joe, like like at the time in the sport, that article came out. He goes, um, I don't really get called that. I think it was more like beefed up for the headline. Well, I'll probably my true likeness to a rugby union player is Jason Robinson. Really, like agile, quick off the mark, and fast. And I met Jason as well and played wheelchair rugby with him at the 2014 Invictus game in the celebrity match. So yeah, he's a really nice guy, and yeah, like an honor to meet him along with all like the celebrities like Prince Harry and etc. Yeah, so that's my true likeness. In if you're going to put a comparison in there, but I don't like to have comparisons really. Yeah,
Well, it's an awkward one, really, because he's, well known like in video clips, so steamrolling over people, whereas in a
yeah,
wheelchair rugby, you probably knock people over, but you're not
yeah,
steamrolling over them.
yeah,
And obviously, looking at like a lot of pictures that you're in,
yeah,
you're generally on one. It's more, I would say, agility type thing because you're generally
yeah,
there's a few of them you're only on one wheel and things like that.
yeah, yeah. I think agility is my main strength. There are players that are more agile than I am, but for my class that I'm in, I'm probably one of the most agile players out there for my classification. But the higher you go, the more agile. Um, the higher point you go, the more agile, the more powerful, the more speedy you'll be. Um, yeah,
And in terms of obviously for the listeners, can you explain to them obviously the difference, probably from a weights perspective, the difference between a rugby chair and a basketball one?
yeah. So my current wheelchair rugby chair is about 17, 18 kilos. Um, and with me inside it, it's about 60 kilos or something. Um, and like a basketball chair, they're light and nimble. I'm guessing they're about 7 to 10 kilos, maybe. Um, what do you reckon? No,
I'd say about that. Maybe even a bit lighter now
yeah,
with
a bit like
them.
with the titanium and
Yeah.
aluminium coming through. Yeah. So, you know, um, yeah, like in a basketball chair, you'd probably be able to go much faster, um, but in a rugby chair, you have to have that because it's a contact sport. You have to have the weight behind you. I mean, you can't really feel it when you're pushing it now. But when I first started playing, I was really struggling because I'm, I'm about I was, probably at the time I was about 42 kilos, and I'm pushing something that's like 17, 18 kilos. It's almost half my weight. I'm pushing, so I had to like get stronger and in my shoulders and do a lot of weight training just to push the thing. And now it's like nothing really. And you're so used to it, and you do all this training, and you can you don't really feel it. I've just returned from like a month off. And my first session back, you can just like you don't realize like how uncomfortable the sports chairs are. Like when you've had like an extended period away, and you sat in your daily use chair like in comfort, and then you go then you go into. I sat in my like rugby chair a couple of weeks ago, and just like this is really uncomfortable. Like I don't, and um yeah, I was pushing it, and when you've had a month off, you've lost all your strength, well, most of your strength and most of your fitness, and you you can feel like the weight of the chair more than usual. So hopefully I'm getting back to a bit of fitness now. Although my teammates might argue after yesterday, um, but I feel quite yeah, I feel it's an upward curve.
But
But
then the break because of illness or injury then?
no, we came back from the European Championships like 2nd or 3rd of July, and we usually like have like a that's our end of season really, and we just had like some guys have 2 weeks off. Um, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but like I took a month off. Like my coach might be listening, might not be happy, but my local club only started training 2 weeks ago, so I just thought let me go back when they start training. So um, I did a couple of gym sessions here and there, but nothing too heavy. But at this part of the season, it's like off season now, and going into the club season. So the club season starts for us in end of September. So um, slowly, hopefully I'll be fit by then. Yeah, I should be fit by then. Got like a month and a half to get ready for that, and then I think the club season ends in February, and then international season will probably kick off more with training camps more frequently after that, depending on the funding situation if we can get it. We've actually got like a debrief for the European Championships tomorrow. I'm going down to Birmingham and hopefully find out some more information about the coming 12 months, like how we're going to prepare for the World Championships, etc.
And then Ayaz, you talk like early doors about that sports changed your life.
Yeah.
How so is it done that?
Um, I think um, before sports, I was like this shy individual that never really talked to people and um, just like I was probably an introvert really. Like I'd stay in my room. Well, I probably still do. Well, um, and just watch TV. Well, I do that anyway, but I still do that. But I was quite shy talking to people, and there's like a point in my life where I struggle like with my disability, like and confidence issues. Um, every time I went out, it still happens now, but um, it doesn't affect me. But um, I mean, you probably know anyway, like the way people look at you when you've got a disability, and people doing a full 360 turn and stopping what they're doing and just watching you, it really made me feel really uncomfortable. And, and there was like a point where I was really afraid to go out, and I'd stay in and um, like not talk to people and be moody and everything. I think sport. I don't know, like I don't know what made me go into sport. I think I got pushed by like the people around me to go to that basketball session, and um, since then, I made friends, got more confident. Got people around me that are accepting, and they've got their own disability. We now we just I just every time I get looked at in the street, I'll give that person a smile, or and if they're close to me, talk to them really just to show them you're a normal quotation person, and you know just try and change people's perception of you. Um, through that little small gesture of a smile or you know a 1 minute convo, and that helps me as well because it gives me more confidence to approach more and more people and talk about myself. And over the years of my true nature's come out. Like I'm quite a jokey person in the team. You know, there's no there's nothing you can't do where I like pick up on and make a joke of or make a prank of. My teammates will um, testify to that really. um, uh, and yeah, just like keeping things light-hearted now. And I think without the influence of sport in my life and meeting these people uh, who are in the same situation as me and playing a sport that we love and going on this journey together for success, I don't think I'd be anywhere near like the person I am today. Um, yeah, it's all about confidence, isn't it? With anything, um, like if I'm not confident in a game, I'm not going to play well. If I'm confident in a game, I'll play well. If I'm not confident in life, I'm just going to be unsuccessful. So I think confidence is key, and um, I think like when I go into schools and things, the big word I talk about is resilience, really. And because like all my life, like throughout school, um, get told you can't do this, you can't do that. At home, you get told you can't do this, you can't do that. But then when you show people, you can do it. And then when you get knocked down after like I did in 2010, being told you'll struggle to have an international career, um, you just get back and try and prove people wrong. And resilience and confidence, and you could probably think of a lot of words, but those two have really stuck with me over the years. And I look to spread that message in my school talks and public events that I do.
And if we come back, like you were talking about, your season runs from September to February. Is it quite condensed and quite a lot of fixtures to what would it be in what would it be about 5 month period?
Yeah. So the way our league competition works is it's like 3 weekends, 4 weekends, sorry. So the 3 weekends are like a league weekends. So it's like a league competition. And it's 5 games over 2 days, which is quite tough. And every there's like 8 clubs in Division One, and most of the GB team are like spread around across the teams. And my team had 5 players. Is it five? 5 players and a staff member representing GB at the European Championships, and same with London and Tigers. Those three are like um, the the top 3 clubs really. Like if you go off the league standings, that produce like the GB players. And yeah, so it's like 5 games over 3 weekends, and it's done like a competition format. So two groups of four, top two get through to semi-finals, and then you play a final, and then you get points on where you finish in that tournament, and then it goes on to a league table. Obviously, whoever's top at the end of the third are the league champions, and then we have a national championships, where like all the Division One and Two teams compete at the same league weekend, and um, yeah, and then that's like done the same way, same format, um, two groups of four, um, yeah, and you get crowned national champions if you win it. Yeah, it's quite a tough 2 days. It's like when we go international and we play one game, that's hard enough. And playing 3 games one day, 2 games the other day, it is quite a challenging time, and you have to be really fit for those because, like myself and a few of the guys, like we play like the majority of the games, like the majority of the minutes of the games, and you have to keep yourself fit. And you know, e- e- each each team has like a small squad of like five to eight players. So every player has to be fit and play major minutes and over the weekend.
But does that not come down to logistical problems and things like that? Because, would, as you said, it takes a toll on the athlete. Would it not be better to maybe, I don't know, maybe copy the model that basketball uses and do like home and away fixtures?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are happy with this format. It's been done for ever since I can remember, really, and there's never been really any complaints about it. It's like a fun weekend away, isn't it? But well, it's not fun. Well, it is fun, but there's a bit of seriousness about it, and yeah, it's just the way the format works, really. And like I'd say, if they fancy a change, that they could look into it. But I think they think it works, and if it isn't broke, you don't fix it, do you? So um, I mean, but I think what they try to do is like get the club season finished and then start because like um and then start the international season. So um because if they run both simultaneously together over the year, you know, um like I mentioned, like each team has like limited amount of players, and if you're taking um 2 or 3 GB players out of each team, that club's going to struggle to train or uh, struggle to compete. And yeah, so I think the format works for the way the wheelchair rugby international calendar is set. So yeah, I think it works quite well.
And my penultimate question for you: where do you kind of see yourself and the sport going? It obviously in the future.
Like the whole sport or the just the GB one.
A little bit of both, the whole sport in general, and also the GB program.
Yeah. So the whole sport really. I think it's getting more and more competitive. Like I think Rio was the most competitive final. Well, what I can remember, and people can say I'm wrong, but to go into like I think it was double overtime and winning by 1 point. I think that was probably the greatest game I've seen live myself, and you know, been watching like the likes of USA, Japan compete at tournaments overseas just recently. They're looking really strong, both teams. Um, so they're getting stronger and stronger, and I think even Japan, with their home, with it being a home Paralympics, they're just gonna throw everything behind it. I think they're gonna be a major uh, player team, and you've got like even in the European zone, you've got France who are up and coming, Sweden who are like well established. You've got Denmark who've got a few exciting players coming through. I think it's going to be really really competitive come Tokyo. With GB, I think um, you know um, when with we just need to sort the funding situation out really. You know, um, we've got enough money. Well, we've got some money for camps and a competition, but to prepare for a world championships, you want to be playing the best frequently. So you want to play against the likes of Australia, USA, Canada, Japan, uh, Denmark, Sweden, France, um, more frequently, and just to get the exposure to best prepare yourself. And like I said, where we got a debrief tomorrow just to brief us, like review the European Championships and then look forward, and hopefully we've got some exciting news coming up regarding our calendar over the next 12 months.
And this is one question I didn't actually ask you. Did you get to go to London 2012 as a spectator?
Yeah, I went as a spectator. Um, and yeah, I went to watch the final. And yeah, I mean, never in my life like I thought I would. 4 years later, I'd be competing at my own. Uh, I'd be on the court myself. In 4 years, like I just thought it was a distant reality. And what slowly it happened, and um, I still don't know how I've done it really. And like um, I think those two words in it, resilience and confidence, and you know, overcoming everything. Like every athlete has their own barriers, but um, I think I've had a lot of barriers to overcome, like um, to get to where I am. And now we're facing another barrier with no support behind us, and hopefully we can prove people wrong come Japan.
And can you kind of describe to the listeners, well, in maybe in your own words, what was the atmosphere like between what you experienced as a spectator in London to what you experienced as an athlete in Rio?
Yeah, London was like everyone was buzzing in the country, weren't they? The Olympics and Paralympics are here, and um, I think the Rio 2016 final was much louder, but I think that's just through the culture barrier. Like Brazilians are quite dancey and lots of noise, and the horns are tooting, whereas like the British culture is more reserved and more like admiring. Um, but I think Rio was a bit louder. Like sometimes, like I can't remember when in London if I like closed my ears uh, due to like the loudness of the fans. Um, but yeah, I mean they're both different, isn't it? I mean I enjoyed London because it was home, and I enjoyed Rio because it was my first. And being a spectator at both finals and um, the Rio 2016 final was probably the um, best game I've ever seen live, and I think the fans appreciated how close it was as well. So it was a bit louder. I think in London 2012, Australia were beating Canada by about 5 or 6, which is quite a substantial margin to get back on an international. It can be done, but you know Australia were quite consistent in that tournament. But in Rio, I didn't know. I kept me and my teammates were watching it together. I was like, Australia's gonna win. No, USA's gonna win. You don't know. It was that exciting. Um, so yeah, I think between the both Paralympics, they're both great in their own way.
And if you had to choose for the one to have been your first Paralympics, which one would it have been? Would it be in London or would it be in Rio?
Um, it'd be in London because you know um it's a home Paralympics, isn't it? And that's never gonna come around again in well
Well,
in a
possibly. I
possibly
doubt it,
yeah
but
yeah
it is
well
possible.
probably not in my lifetime or my career like sport as a sportsman. And I would have loved to have competed, and speaking to a few teammates who went to London 2012 competed there. They said it was best time of their life. And well, um, Rio, that was special as well. I've never been to Brazil, and I've been to Brazil twice now. So and um, you know um, that first game when you're playing in a packed crowd for 10 to 15,000 people. We're used to just playing in front of like max 20 people really at our league competitions in front of friends and family, and to that level of intensity through the crowd was just like it was scary at first, but when you get used to it, you sort of feed off it. And it's weird because like if I look back on the games now, as I got into the game, you don't really notice the crowd. You just like focused on the court, um, and yeah, I think the more and more exposure we can have to bigger audiences and things like that will help like any team prepare really for the Paralympics.
But then that's a difficult one with coverage. I know you had up in what would have been the lead up to Rio, you had your event, well, test event, so to speak, in the copper box, and that was aired live. It was, I think ITV did it for you. But I don't know, it's a difficult one because you could say, well, this is my opinion now, that Paralympic sport maybe should get more coverage because they actually, in theory, do better than the Olympic team. But it maybe comes down to that complexity of classification and explaining. And to some people, it's maybe just too overcomplicated sometimes, and it just goes over people's head. And that's why, well, able-bodied sport, but obviously able-bodied sport is the forefront anyway, and
Yeah,
it's probably money is to be blamed because if you look at football, it's always on now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Channel 4 are doing a great job really. Watching the coverage of the athletics Paralympic World Championships, and the way they explain, they've actually got disabled people and um, Paralympic athletes that previous explaining the rules, and they're doing a great job like presenting and explaining. And I think the more that takes off, I mean they've always just recently started doing it over the last few years. Um, the more and more that takes off, I think the more and more coverage Paralympic sport will get. I mean athletics is probably for TV purposes the best one um, to promote and to cover. There's lots of events and lots of athletes, and it's a bigger event. But um, you know, sports like wheelchair basketball and wheelchair rugby, I think they could have their own, um, you know, um, televised world championships as well because those are just as exciting. Like you watch next year, like I said about the top five teams, um, going toe to toe, like between 1-2 points in it. It's going to be a few nail biting games, and you know sometimes it's better than the football game. You know, I've watched many drab affairs with football, and and that gets televised, and so I think the more and more like coverage Paralympic sport gets, it might filter out to the other Paralympic sports that are more not more or just as exciting as athletics.
And then, as we touch upon like the TV coverage, do you see yourself possibly in the future going down that route and maybe being a presenter or say one of the actual reporters for what might not even be Channel 4, but going down that route after your career is finished?
I've never really thought about it. Like I think I just want to at this moment just pursue a speaking career, like a not like an inspirational speech, and just at events and after dinner events and like carrying my schoolwork. But it's never really something I've thought about presenting, and I'm not sure I'll be that skilled at it to be honest. But uh, like yeah, I mean, if it's an option, I might consider it, but it's probably highly unlikely that I'll go down that route. Because, like I said about my interview after the Canada game, I've not watched that back, and that's like a 2-minute interview, and I don't know how I'd manage to watch myself back presenting and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, if the opportunity is there and I feel it's right for me, I'll take it. But at this moment in time, probably not.
But then you can't do any worse than some of the commentators.
Yeah, I mean, no, like Steve McManaman on BT Sport is a bit drab and uh, obvious Owen, Michael Owen. But yeah, I mean, commentating might be a good. Some people, um, few of my teammates jokingly say like, "I'd love to hear you as a commentator during the game," because sometimes I can be quite harsh and quite funny, or sometimes like a bit out there, like um, and maybe that's something I could do, like commentating on a game.
But then I think people enjoy that sometimes when the person is honest. They've actually done the sport themselves. They can kind of see it from the athlete's perspective
Yeah,
and seeing, well, they so and so could have done it this way. They should have done that. And
yeah,
you're being honest. You can kind of see it. Give it from the viewer's perspective. You're giving them a look in through the athlete's eyes.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's always good to have like a somebody who's well known, like not who knows the sport to explain the sport. Like when we watch some of the coverage on TV, and you've got these um big time presenters making mistakes, like um and you just get annoyed listening to them. You sometimes mute it. I think that happened with one of our like championships at wheelchair rugby. Um, some guy who never knew the sport is commentating on what he's seeing, which is completely wrong, and he's asking the guy next to him, "What was that called by the referee?" And so if it's done right, you can get a, a good commentator on board, or somebody who's experienced in the sport, um, who knows the game and adds a bit of fun to it. Um, and yeah, that'd be great, really.
And my last question before we wrap up the episode: if you had to summarize this episode into one sentence, what would that be?
Um, oh, that's a tough one. um, I mean, I've done most of the talking, sorry. Um, I think the summary is just looking back on my career so far, and I think it just rings with any athlete career at the moment, but especially with like disability and stuff. It's just those two words really, just resilience and confidence. That's having that self belief. So having those three things um, are like a good recipe for success, not just in sport, but in anything really. And that's the sort of message I give to the school children, and hopefully that simple message gives them a platform to succeed in life.
I think that's some good words to live by. Those. So, Ayaz, once again, thank you for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's my
Thank you.
pleasure.